Hello and welcome to the Built to Serve podcast. On today's episode, we've brought in E5 Sergeant Toby Hebert. Toby works for Performance at the Air Products LaPorte site in Texas. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a world of things. His transition from civilian life into the National Guard and from his past unit in 321 to the 20th Group Special Forces. There's a lot to learn from Toby in a sense of motivation, in a sense of courage and dedication and perseverance. He's definitely inspired me to want to do this episode and provide you with as much insight into the world of transition as possible. Please join us in the Built to Serve podcast. So, Toby, where are you from?
Born and raised here in Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, right? You LSU fan?
Yeah, to an extent of being from the city, but I'm not a big sports guy.
Really?
Really.
Oh, wow. In the Army, but not a sports guy.
Well, I say not a sports guy. I'm not a publicly aspirated sports guy.
Okay.
I wrestled in high school.
Okay.
I didn't
All right.
do football or baseball. I was a wrestler.
I got you. Okay. Well, so where'd you go to high school and all that?
Burley. I went to Burley High School. I was in Burley from 6th all the way to 12th.
Okay.
Graduated. But as far as like all areas I was from, Burley, Port Allen, Addis, that was my stomping grounds.
Okay, got you. So, at what point in your childhood, I guess, did you decide that you wanted to be in the Army National Guard?
I would say definitely after my uncle made his jump into the Army.
Okay.
He went into the reserves, and even as a child, I was always wanting to be in the Army. I always wanted to be a soldier.
Okay.
And after he did it, it was definitely the idea, I'm gonna do this.
Okay. So what's your MOS now? You're currently in, right? So what's
Yes.
your MOS?
I'm a 91 Bravo.
All right, and that is
Wheel vehicle mechanic, but I've got it. My ASI is a Hotel H, so I fall into the recovery side. I'm a heavy recovery mechanic.
okay. So when you went to the recruiter's office, did you tell them you wanted to be a mechanic, or did they pick an MOS for you based off of your ASVAB score?
Well, I didn't really get to pick. Well, I got to pick, but as far as joining reserves, it's all based off of availability.
Right.
So I whenever I tested and got my ASVAB score, I scored an 82. My recruiter tried to talk me into going on active duty,
Yeah.
but I wanted to stay reserves, and it was either be a mechanic, be a cook, or be a medical service technician on equipment.
Okay.
And I chose to be a mechanic because I like being outside.
All right. So after high school and then joining the military, what kind of civilian career path did you choose?
Well, I didn't really pick it. It sort of picked me.
Okay.
I did 6 weeks at BRCC.
Okay.
Couldn't stand sitting in a classroom
Right.
anymore, and I dropped out. But at the time, my dad was doing pre-down on a turnaround in Africa.
Oh, wow.
And he came home and he found out that I had dropped out of college. And he said, well, look, I'm going to give you an opportunity to come make some money. But this will be your deciding point, whether you're going to work the rest of your life or you're going to go back to school. So he drugged me halfway around the world to a little country called Equatorial Guinea, Malabo, and worked me for 2.5 months as a helper, retube, and a reformer.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I fell in love with the work.
All right. So construction.
Yeah, I love construction. I
Wow.
love building.
All right. So I guess go into that experience, right? I mean, you're in another country. What was that like? And then, talk how did that and your military career integrate?
Well, so I'd always said I wanted to join the Army,
Right.
but I was always indecisive.
Okay.
Well, let's take away the Army. I always wanted to be in the military. But I was so indecisive, I never knew what I wanted to do. But as far as work-wise, whenever we touched down in Africa, it was the scariest feeling ever. I mean, we had just crossed 2 continents and in 4 different countries because we flew from New Orleans to Atlanta, Atlanta to Paris, Paris to Nigeria, and then to this small island in the 90-degree turn of Africa. And just getting off the plane in Malabo, because they were shooting us with temp guns because this was the height of Ebola. This was
Okay.
January of 2015. They were shooting us with temp guns because they thought that Americans were the ones that started Ebola. So that being the first thing, we got into this old Volvo standard bus, and they bussed us 3.5 miles from the airport to this plant. And just in that 3.5 miles, now take it, this is a dictator ran country,
Right.
hostile military, everything, and I counted 3 cars that were riddled with bullet holes.
Oh, wow. That's
Just in that
definitely
3 miles.
intimidating, right? So, yeah.
Being an 18-year-old kid, never done anything like this. This is like, I just jumped off in the deep end.
You're right, right. Oh, God, what have I done, right? Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
But after that, it was 2.5 months of straight work.
Right.
We got to it. It was like 20 of us initially. We did 2 6 12 weeks, and then we rolled in a full turnaround. 7 12s, no fatigue days, no nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
OSHA is non-existent there.
Wow.
When I say that, the crane we used to pull these tubes out of this reformer was an old 999 Manitowoc.
Uh-huh.
They kept it boomed down in the jungle behind the plant. When I say literal moss growing on this red boom, it looked like a green and red candy cane. There was so much moss on it.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
And they dropped the boom to keep what from people knowing.
I just storage and keep stress off it, I guess.
Okay, I was like, are they trying to hide it? From people trying to steal it or whatever. So there's a plant in the middle of this hostile territory.
Yeah, so like there's actually 3 off this island. They pull all the crude oil out of the if you look at Africa on a map where it makes the 90 degree, there's a chain of islands, and it's the biggest one.
Okay.
They do a bunch of crude oil processing.
Okay.
Inside this string of 3 facilities, all the property is owned by the United Kingdom, and that's who they operate under. Is the UK. Once you cross the fence, you go from Malabo to the UK.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So during this time, you're not in the military yet?
No, I actually didn't join the Army until I was 20.
Okay. All right. So you worked a couple of years in construction.
Yes, sir.
And then realized at some point you realized, okay, I want to join the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that. What helped you make that decision?
Well, I was always set on I wanted to do it.
Uh-huh.
I just never had to push.
Right.
Until February of 2016, I flipped my truck, and it damn near killed me. I say killed me. It could have killed me. I walked away with a busted lip and a fractured rib, and that was it.
Wow.
And I sat on my back porch with my dad that night, and we had just laid my stepmom to rest, and I said, "This is it. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it."
Right.
And the following months, I started my recruiting process.
Okay. So you knew, like you said, that you wanted to join the National Guard.
Well, I didn't start the National Guard. I started in the reserves.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna say there's a big difference, but there's a significant difference between the two as far as like how the structure is, command wise.
Okay.
So like the reserves still fall under DOD, whereas the National Guard falls under the state.
Okay. All right. So you're in the military at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and where'd you do your basic and all that?
I did basic training at Fort Jackson in South Carolina.
Relaxing Jackson. Yeah, it's all relaxing now, I hear. So, where'd you do your AIT?
Fort Lee, Virginia.
See, back years ago, they did all the mechanical at Aberdeen Proving Ground, for which then was the 63 series. You'd go to APG in Aberdeen, right outside of Baltimore, Maryland. That's world class. So, you what year was it when you came out of AIT?
2017.
Okay, so are we in conflict at that point? I mean, are they telling you that you're going to get deployed or anything like that?
We still have people overseas in contact,
Uh-huh.
but deployments are starting to slope off.
Yeah, and this is pre the Afghan pullout. So
this is almost 3.5 years before we pulled out.
okay, all right. So Tell me what it's like at your I guess not necessarily your duty station, right? But your unit. What's that like
So my
in the
first,
reserves?
yeah,
In the
my
reserves.
my first station, I got stationed in Mobile, Alabama, with the 498 Transportation Company, and these guys do nothing but drive. The first three drills I went to, I did nothing but driver's training.
Wow.
I got certified on pretty much every class of Humvee, every class of LMTV, the Hemet wreckers,
Mhm.
uh, pretty much anything with wheels in the Army I got certified on.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever heaviest class we had, that's what they were testing me on to expand my license.
Right.
uh, Between running convoys to Pensacola, we ran convoys all the way to shoot, what's that one in New Jersey?
Oh gosh, I
It
don't know.
I can't remember the name of the fort up there, but we ran convoys all the way up there and doing basic mechanic work. But that's where I decided I wanted to be a recovery mechanic.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
Uh, well, recovery mechanics always are in the wrecker.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say don't do as much, but they do more outside of a motor pool and hands-on tools.
Right.
Uh, so any kind of movements, we're deciding the convoy recovery plans and everything like that. As far as being out in the field, we're always the ones getting pulled to go
Mhm.
get somebody who stuck a Humvee in the middle of a tank trail.
Yep. Yep.
I've pulled quite a few Humvees out of tank trails, and that was why I wanted to do it. I wanted to get out of the shop and more into the field aspect of it. Granted,
Okay.
I did that anyway.
Sounded like you wanted to be more involved with what was going on
Yeah.
outside of, everyday routine maintenance.
Yes, sir.
Right, I get that.
I definitely wanted to be outside of routine maintenance because I got tiring.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you you made a transition at some point. I know you and I had previously talked before we started airing, where you had your aspirations were to be something more within the military, right? So at what point go into what it was that you wanted to get into, why you wanted to get into it, and just talk about that for a little bit.
Uh, well, originally I wanted to go special forces.
Okay.
It's all I talked about in high school. It's all I ever wanted to be. I went from being a Navy SEAL to wanting to be a PJ,
Right.
to want to be a Ranger, and I always got told, "Oh, you can't do that.
Mhm.
You don't have what it takes to do that." I was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna give it a go." Uh, and going through right before I enlisted, and it was a year before I enlisted. My We had just laid my stepmom to rest,
Mhm.
and me and my dad were coming back from Batesville, Mississippi, where we buried her. Well, his friend in 20th group was spinning up to go to Africa, and they had to. It was Charlie Company. He was in Charlie Company with 20th group at the time, and I believe they were going to Africa at that point, or they might have been going to the Middle East. But we ended up. I don't know if you ever been to or heard of Camp McCain.
I've done drill there. Yeah.
That's where 20th groups for Echo and Charlie Company are.
Mhm.
That's where they were. They were getting ready to leave. We just stopped and we sat there and talked with this whole ODA that's getting ready to go on deployment for almost 3 hours.
Wow.
Oh, dude, they brought us in their weapon cage. They had 12 of everything, and from sniper rifles to M4s to sidearms, MP5s, all kinds of stuff, and played with $15,000 night vision scopes.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Right.
And I mean, so I already knew what Jason did because even after he had taken his plunge, I didn't know at that point when he decided to do it. But we had went on several family vacations after he had gotten in and gotten around a little bit. He showed me videos from Afghanistan, Iraq.
Oh wow.
It was awesome, and I was just like, that is cool. Uh, Fast forward to 2016, I'd already signed my contract into the reserves because my uncle said, do the reserves for a 2-year split stint, just in case you don't like the culture shock, you only have to serve 2 years and then you get out.
Right.
And I was like, that's pretty even-natured assessment. So I did, instead of doing 2 years, I went ahead and did 6.
Okay.
I was like, screw it, I'm gonna take the plunge. Uh, went to basic training. I went to the 498th. Then I transferred from the 498th to the 321 in Baton Rouge, and that's where I became a recovery mechanic. Was there, but I always wanted to do more because support just wasn't my tempo
Right.
per se. All my likes and interests weren't support wise. I wanted to be in the fight.
Yeah.
And so I think I was 4 years into my contract, and I got in touch with Jason, and he said I can make some moves happen and try and get you in the 20th. I was like, all right, well let's go ahead and start that process. I talked to a recruiter for maybe an hour and a half on the phone, and this dude was gun ho. He was just trying to get 18 X-rays.
Right.
So he didn't want to budge on that. He wanted me to go straight into it. Whereas Jason had sold me on this, come in as a support guy and see how you like it first before
Right.
you make that jump. And I was like, yeah, I want to do the support guy, but the recruiter kind of scared me off.
Right. Right.
So I ended up putting it down because of, not just because of that, because of talking to my wife and dealing with my kids. And I ended up picking it back up again in 21, trying to do it. And one of the hurricanes that went through New Orleans and Mississippi, the guy I was talking to he just stopped answering the phone.
Mm.
And at this point, my wife has expressed her concerns. She's not really for it at this point. I'd actually just gotten a job offer here whenever I was trying to do this. And I left it alone at that point.
Okay.
Last year, they were doing maintenance on our buildings at the unit. So we were drilling at the GSRI off of Gaudier, and we always try and plan in advance. And so any movements we do, we plan in advance. Any ranges we do, we try and plan in advance.
Right.
But so at this point, I'd been in this unit for going on almost 7 years, and I can honestly say it has steadily sloped off to the worst side of never being able to accomplish any mission. Whether it be going to the range, not being able to properly do a range, whether it be we were still doing trial PT tests post-COVID because due to regulation change. We hadn't done a record PT test in almost 3 years.
All because of COVID?
Well, yeah,
Or just post-COVID?
So just during COVID, they changed a bunch of stuff. So between the qualifying, what your M4s and your PT, those were the two biggest changes.
Right.
So we went from doing run, push-ups, and sit-ups to deadlift, standing power throw, 2-mile run, sprint, drag, carry, all that. So they've been in this transitional period. Well, I believe it was 21 or 22. The Army started, like Big Army started, okay, we've had enough transition. It's time to start doing this. And my unit's still behind the curve. Still can't get people to pass it. Still can't get people to qualify.
No kidding.
And then biggest thing was with the ranges. So we changed the way we qualify. Instead of doing 3 rounds, 20, 10, 10, magazine wise, it's 10, 10. Yeah, it's 10, 10, 10, I believe now. It's been such a minute since I actually qualified.
Right.
I haven't had an actual qualifier in 5 years.
What?
Yeah, I'm technically not qualified on N4 right now due to my unit, because so with the change in qualifying, they changed the tables on training it. So you have to do in classroom portion, then you have to do physical hands-on portion, instruction, then digital qualifications. So 0 at the digital range, qualify at the digital range, and you got to do a gas mask and night qual.
Okay.
But we never did it properly. And To this day, there is nobody in the 321 that is qualified. Actually, hands down qualified, because we may shoot and qualify physically on the range,
Yeah.
but as soon as they enter it into DTMS, the whole unit fails because they don't run the tables right. Because you have to enter, you're scored on each table.
So you're no longer in that unit, right?
No.
All right. So you said enough's enough.
Yeah,
I'm transferring to a.
Whenever I said last year, I came home so mad. I told my wife, it's either I get out at the end of this contract or I go and do what I want.
Okay.
I'm sick of being stagnant.
I got you. Well, you said she wasn't all about whole SF thing, right?
At this point in my mind, I'm thinking about just myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to do SF. I'm tired of doing the typical roundabout BS that I've been doing for the last 7 years. It's either I make a big change in either direction or I just put up with it. And I didn't want to walk away with just a GI Bill.
Right.
I wanted an experience. I wanted that military life. I love it. So I started talking to Jason, and my wife's biggest thing was she understood everything it took that I would have to go through to become a Green Beret. And she hated the fact that the idea of me being away for 2 full years,
right,
due to Q course. And that was my biggest hindrance. So I tried to get in touch with my dad's buddy, and I finally did. He's overseas at the moment, and we finally got in touch. And I told him what my biggest hindrance is right now of holding me, and he's like, "Just take them with you." I'm like, "What do you mean take them with me?" He said, "Going to Q course is a full active duty PCS move. They can go with you." And I was like, "Huh,
okay."
And I put that up to her, and she's like, "Okay, I think I can deal with this." So I started talking to a recruiter, and as I'm going through it, I'm mentally fighting with myself. Can I do this? Am I doing it for the right reasons? And I think, and this is like right after I started talking to a recruiter, I forget what happened. My mom sent me this long text message about you need to think about the kids, and you need to get out, and you don't need to be in the Army under this kind of government. And take it at this point, I've been in under 3 presidents. Nothing big has changed in the Army as far as president-wise.
Right.
So I took it into account, and I started thinking, back to when I was a kid, I always remember my mom and dad telling us about stuff they wish they would have done, stuff they wish they could have done as far as career-wise, life-wise. And I'm the type of person, I try and live my life with absolutely no regrets.
I got you.
I don't regret any decision I made up until this point. And that's definitely something I want to pass to my kids. So I started thinking, as far as my kids, would they rather me sit on the couch as 50 years old and say, "Oh yeah, I wanted to be a Green Beret, but I had y'all, so I just kind of put it to the side and I never did it."
I got you.
So that's been my biggest decision, is I'm doing it not just for myself, but for my kids as well, to show them that whatever you dream of, you can make happen, even if you fail at it. Just keep trying.
That's right. That's good. And I know we were talking previously. So you had said when you made NCO, your son pinned you E5, right?
Yeah.
You said you had a picture of that. Let's see if we can get that up there.
Yeah. So that's my oldest boy. And he ended up pinning me 5. I made 5 in 22. I had been an E4 since 2017 at this point. So I was 5 years as an E4. I was 3.5 years as a specialist and 2 years as a corporal. I went through this whole stint, same thing with that unit that didn't want to do anything correctly.
Right.
They always used and abused their 5s.
Uh-huh.
And when I say abused them, every set of extra orders, every BS job, they had the 5s doing. They had the 5s pushing. The 5s were the enemies of the soldiers.
Wow.
and COVID happened.
Yeah.
I made corporal, and my buddy made 5, and he started pushing me to get my 5. I'm like, no, man, I don't want to do it. 5s are always used here. I have no aspirations of being a sergeant at the moment.
Right.
And COVID ended. We went back to the physically in-person drilling, and at that point, it got put in my head. Once you become an NCO, you have more power. You can make change. You can
Right.
change the attitude of soldiers, and that's when I started pushing for my 5 in 21.
Okay.
And
Cool.
my aspirations were to get 5. I was set up for BLC, and I set it up in January. I was supposed to go in October, and then Big Army made the big swoop and promoted when I say across the board, a bunch of 4s to 5s. And the only prerequisite was you have to go to BLC. And I was like, okay, I'll take it.
So you got pinned and then went to BLC.
Yes, sir. I held sergeant for almost 8.5 months before I went to BLC.
Oh, wow. Golly. And how long ago was this?
This was
22,
in,
you said?
yeah, I got pinned in 22, and I went to BLC October of that year.
Okay. What other photos you got? Click to the next one, please. All right, talk to me about that.
So that's my maintenance guys. The dude all the way to the right, he's our chief warrant officer. The big guy next to him, that's Sergeant Moore. He's actually in Germany right now. He left the 321 to go on some kind of training mission there with another unit. I never got the full details of where he's at. The shorter, older guy is Sergeant Schroeder. He was one of my mentors coming up as a recovery guy. He always had me in the record because whenever I transferred into the 321, the biggest issue they had were drivers.
Yeah.
They couldn't get people certified. Then they got this brand new E4 coming in, and he's licensed on everything we got.
Right.
So I'm going to use him.
Driver problem fix, right?
Oh, yeah. The dude holding up his hand, that's Lopez. He actually just made 5 like a week and a half ago.
Okay.
And he was our Seaburn guy, and so he was attached to our platoon. So he did everything with us. Maintenance-wise, he was always in the motor pool. Never really had an opportunity to do his job. And he ended up moving on to active duty. Sergeant Mo, the guy that's behind me, he was our platoon sergeant from 2018 all the way up to 2021, and he transitioned into the motor sergeant slot. And then the Hispanic guy right behind me, he was our I can't remember the name of it. He was basically the paperwork side.
Okay, admin.
But, yeah, he was admin, but he was over all of us mechanics.
Okay.
He was our E7. And
Okay.
then Sergeant Chenier right there, she was the one who really helped me push to get my 5 and want to get it.
All right.
That's from recovery school at Camp Shelby. That was my final test, and it was a cold one.
Oh, yeah, when you have to actually get into the water,
January.
pick this thing up. Did you have a Hemet wrecker?
No, we did everything with Hemets.
Okay.
The PLSs suck.
Yeah, they did. I know all about Camp Shelby. I've made this same recovery. I was a 63 series, as I'd said, so I completely understand. There's a lot of those have been torn apart in that same mud hole right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have some of them where we've patched axles. You don't hook it right, it'll pull the whole wheel completely off. I mean, the bumpers. You'd be surprised at some of the stuff people can do, and like you're a mechanic, you're a recovery guy. Surely you can identify places on any military vehicle where you can rig to recover this vehicle.
Oh yeah,
dude, you got people hooking up to like side mirrors. I mean, they want to pull around to the backside, try to hook it up from the back axle. people are hooked to the bed. Look, it'll blow your mind. And mind you, this is all in Mississippi, right? So you would think the majority population would know how to rig this thing up and excavate it out of a mud hole. But look, hey, to each his own. I guess that's why they have the class. So yeah.
It was mid-January when I went, and that recovery pool was cold.
Oh, yeah.
I actually got honor grad in this class because whenever my buddy got up on the bed and rigged our snatch block, instead of laying it flat, he let the wrecker just pull it off. So it had to sit horizontally. Instead of it sitting like that, it dropped vertically.
Got you.
And probably went 3 foot into the mud. So the cable was just pulling sideways on the snatch block, and we couldn't get anything to move. I was the only one that took a deep breath and finally went under the water to try and dig it out. And when I finally got it out, my instructor yelled out, "That's our honor grad."
I identified him right there.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, that's all I had to do."
So you have construction experience during this, right? So, I mean, the other professions of the other classmates, they could be like school teachers or janitors or whatever. I mean, you've actually got experience in the field in construction dealing with crane and rigging. So this is just another day at the office, right?
Yeah. It definitely helped me a lot in recovery school. And being a welder, they definitely used me at the unit.
Okay.
They had me fix all kinds of, from broken tools to people's old lawnmower handles, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
This is when I graduated BLC.
All right, who's that with you?
That is the one of my best friends. He's the power ran of my daughter, and he served with me in the 321. His name's Evan. He was our generator mechanic.
Okay.
And he's trying to go to warrant officer school at the moment.
Oh, he's in the Army as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's funny you said Paran. That's something you don't hear a lot, especially around Mississippi. Right? I'm from New Orleans, so I had a Paran, so I get that. It's like Godfather. It's in French, I guess. Go ahead.
This is the day I signed my contract with 20th Group, transferring from the reserve to the National Guard.
Okay. So who's all these fine individuals?
So next to me is my beautiful wife and my rock, the one that's pushed me to do all this. The little angel in my arm, that's my baby girl, Kaylin. She just made 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My big guy, that's Brantley. He was my firstborn in my maturing decision. I thank God every day for that kid. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am as far as mindset.
Right.
He's the one who made me take that step to grow up into an actual man.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful.
And then that's my little gremlin in the middle, Troy. Quiet, soft-hearted, but mischievous.
It's crazy that you can have all three of those.
Oh yeah,
I get it.
He's quick. He's quick and tender-hearted, but he will be the first one to be jumping off a bridge when he's 12.
Yeah, stay away from those bridges. Stay away from those bridges.
Back at recovery school.
Yep.
Thankfully, I didn't have to touch that one, but
that's a tough one,
dude. That one was easier than the LMTV.
Really?
Yeah, because it was on solid ground where ours sank in the mud.
Oh, depending on what time of the year, it definitely there's an advantage in one or the other, right? So, and again, I mean, it's all about how you hook this thing up. Did they tell you where you need to hook it up?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to hook it up. But
I was gonna say
theirs was a straight pull. We had to pull ours at an angle because of the way they rolled it into the pond.
Did they have any of the equipment out there with any of the lightning bolt on it?
No.
Oh, that was my old unit. Did you see any while you were there?
I've seen them.
Yeah,
I've been to Shelby enough to see them.
That was my old unit. We basically ran, say it's a brigade, the 155 Brigade. They basically ran Camp Shelby, which I don't want to say that. I mean, there is a unit that runs Camp Shelby, but 155 is the better unit. All right. Tell me about this. This is when you're actually extracting the Bradley?
Yeah. This was team 2. This wasn't the team I was on. That's Well, I have so many pictures of them.
Gotcha.
We hadn't done our test yet. They were finishing up theirs, and they had finally got the Bradley to roll up on the side of the bank.
Okay. Roll on.
That was my class before we pulled ours out. They got Team 2 to come over, and we all got up on the back of the LMTV and took that picture. I am actually standing up on the railing of the LMTV all the way to the left. I'm the tallest one with the white hard hat.
Got you.
So this is back in 2017 when I graduated basic. That's my dad's buddy and my first time ever seeing him in uniform. At this point, he told me that day that he hadn't put that uniform on in 8 years. And he had a full beard 2 days prior to this. And he decided he was going to come. He was an E8 at the time.
So explain that. He's in the military,
Mm-hmm.
but hasn't put the uniform on in 8 years.
Once you step out of regular Army and the SF, you kind of do what you want as far as aesthetics, because the nature of your mission at that point. I mean,
You're more or less undercover.
in a sense, you don't want to be clean shaven, squared away haircut in some of the places these guys are, because
You got to blend in.
yeah, you can't stand out,
Got you.
and military stands out.
That's sure.
So I honestly wish I still had it, but the one and only challenge coin I've ever gotten in my career was from him.
Oh, man.
That day, when I graduated, he came up and he shook my hand and he coined me his unit coin. It was a dog tag style coin with the Special Forces deployment patch on one side and then the Oppresa de Libre skull on the other. And I ended up having it stolen from me on a turnaround in New Orleans.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I don't know what happened to it. I put my wallet in my box at one point, and when I came back, I was missing all my cash and that coin.
You'll have that. Thieves. Roll on.
Back to recovery school. This is when they were rolling stuff in. I actually have videos of them rolling both the LMTV and the Bradley into the pond. I didn't have enough room to send.
Yeah,
them
you just got
storage.
pictures of it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So tell me about what you brought.
So this was the first PC I was ever issued since I enlisted. I vowed when I enlisted in the Army to keep that until I was pinned 5. Unless something happened to it where I had to replace it, I was gonna wear that patrol cap until I made 5.
That's it.
You can feel how crusty it is. It's seen all kinds of blood and sweat from me busting knuckles.
I've never felt one where the brim is that hard. Are they all like this now?
Mm-mm.
How did you get it so hard, or just all the sweat?
It's from age.
God,
I've seen maybe 2 or 3 with the split bill like that. How the fabric split on it,
Right,
and
right.
it's just from wear.
Do they still have the winter covers too?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a summer cover. You can see.
Oh wait,
it's
no,
got the
we so it's all beanie caps now in the winter. If
mandatory.
no, not mandatory.
Okay.
If command allows it, it's beanie caps,
Okay.
either brown or black. But
All right, so and this is how much. Times have changed so much. When I enlisted, we had BDUs, of course. So you had 2 covers: the winter cover and the summer cover. And your uniforms were the same. You had a lightweight and a heavyweight, right? It was to help you deal with the weather. So they don't have that anymore?
no, sir.
Okay. All right. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. Yeah, just throw that out there. So this is seen E2, E3, E4, specialist corporal now.
It's seen every rank from E1 to E5. Because I
You need to hang this somewhere. Like,
it hangs on my wall on my first deer.
I don't know, I'd bring this to the office where I work, hang this thing up, or put it in a shadow box or something. Like, I need to do the same thing, dude. Now that you mention it, I've still got my cover. It's in my green duffel bag that I got at basic training, and it's in my attic. Yeah, I need to do that. Maybe me and my son will jump up there this evening and go grab mine. So that's hilarious. Mine's actually got a ranger role in it. Do you have any plans of going to ranger school?
I hope so. My right now my focus is selection.
I got you. I
My
got you.
I've been training for almost a year now by myself. Between lifting, rucking, and running, I have developed a 4-day cycle of nothing. And my wife, I've pushed myself to points my wife thought I was going to kill myself physically.
Right, right. You get to the point to where you just, yeah, I
I,
get it.
when the first time I put my rucksack on at 65 pounds, and I ran for 7.5 miles on a treadmill,
Wow.
and my wife thought I was crazy.
That's an interesting story. So, winding things down, if you had one message that you wanted to put out there, what would that message be?
Uh, as far as army or
Well, you and I had actually talked previously. There was something that you wanted to stress. Go into that.
the biggest thing would be adversity that most people don't see the National Guard and reservists face.
Uh-huh.
Everybody everybody sees the honorable aspect of being a volunteer soldier, but nobody sees the adversity we face whenever it comes down to actually taking a set of orders or going to drill or even being deployed.
Right.
Because yeah, we're in the army, but we run a dual life as
Right.
far as
Exactly.
working part time for the army and a full time civilian. I mean, me myself, I've faced adversity career wise so many times, being considered a short service worker, working turnarounds. I do the proper thing as soon as I get hired. Let them know, hey, I'm in the reserves, I'm in the National Guard, what not, and I hand them my schedule. And they're all forthcoming until it actually hits. Uh, I between myself, I have aided in several soldiers that have dealt with people trying to get rid of them due to drill, due to the orders, everything, and it's just something that's looked over
Yeah.
that I personally cannot stand. I mean, I companies that'll say, "Oh, we support the military," but they won't support the guys working for them that are in it physically. I've been told to my face, "Oh, we don't do anything for guys that are in the service," and
Wow.
I've been threatened to be fired over drill.
And again, you and I have actually talked about this previously. That's against the law,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's, with no disrespect, I think it's ignorance because people don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a thing out there called USERA, right? This is basically the law that says that you cannot terminate or discriminate against a military reserve or National Guard member in any way, shape, or form for their military duty, right? So I think it's just ignorance.
Yeah.
And I hope that you haven't experienced that in your career with performance.
No, in fact, coming to performance, it's been a push to make me want more. Like I said earlier, I don't like being stagnant.
Right.
I can't stand stagnant. It bugs me. I don't like staying in the same place. I don't like doing the same thing. I want to do more. I want to try more. I want to be more.
That's right.
I since I hired on with performance, I felt nothing but, not just on the civilian side, push to better myself, but also better myself on the military side as well. Every time something happens and I gotta go to a school or take a set of orders, okay, tell us when.
Right.
And
And
when
that's
I
the
come
biggest
back,
thing.
there's something waiting on me.
That's the biggest thing. And we talked about this previously too, making sure that you provide your leadership within the company performance, right? And you're in the project controls department right
Mhm.
now at the Air Products plant in LaPorte, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you let your management know as soon as you find out or you get orders and say, hey, look, I've got drill these days, I've got AT these days, whatever deployment's coming up, should you get deployed, you let them know as soon as you find out.
Yeah.
That is the standard.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, this is what we do as military personnel. We make sure our leadership on our civilian career, job, whatever, they know so they can plan for those days that you have to take off. Now, I think that it's, like I said earlier, I think it's just ignorance that people don't know that they're not supposed to lay you off or discriminate against you. But to each his own. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So if you had to choose one person in your life that was, I guess, the most impactful, carried the most meaning, who would that be and why?
Well, it's actually two people.
Okay.
It'd be both my fathers. Uh, but my dad, he's the one who got me into the industry, and basically he laid the groundwork for what I'm doing now.
Okay. In construction?
Yes.
Okay.
He, as a construction manager, he was able to put me in different spots. From 18 to 20, I rolled through pipe fitting, boiler making, ironworking, rigging. I didn't get into welding until after I joined the Army, but he rolled me through all the crafts to see which one I liked pretty much.
Okay.
And I did my time as a helper, and then I started rolling into A-class spots or B-class spots to fill in where he needed work on a job site, because he knew even if I didn't have the knowledge, I had the work ethic behind me to whatever they needed done, I could do it. And he told me a year and a half into my career, because I told him I would like to be a construction manager. He said, "No, go be a planner. They deal with half the headache that we deal with,
Right.
and they do just as well."
Right.
And I was like, "All right." And he whenever I got out of basic training, I actually started ABC school to get my planning cert and my project supervision certs and NCCRs. So on top of being a pipe fitter and a combo welder, finally that's what I decided to stick with. I ultimately wanted to be a planner and eventually roll into a role in construction management at later on in life.
Okay. That's all right. And who's the other individual?
That would be my stepdad.
Okay.
He's
right.
He didn't have as much impact on my career directly. He was more of an indirect factor due to his position at work. Just watching him and the way he handles stuff, he's shown me how to calm myself and talk and pretty much handle professional situations.
Sure.
And he helped me develop as a person more or less, rather than a hand.
Okay.
So as far as as well as I do, when you're in the field, there's you don't have to have a filter on.
Right.
You pretty much say what you want to whoever
Right.
you want. And just being around him and watching him deal with certain things, it's shown me how to dial all that back.
Right.
And
how to conduct yourself as a
Yes.
professional, right, in a professional manner, because I'm sure you're dealing with clients now, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
yeah, I get that. So there is a certain level of professionalism that you have to maintain, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get that.
Yeah, and besides that, becoming an NCO has definitely aided me in professionalism as well. I am the epitome of, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
That's right.
I am hardly ever late to work, and if so, it's for some reason.
I think that's the military in us. I don't know if it's not instilled in all of us who've served, but I feel as if I know I'm the same way, because I've always had the mentality of if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Mhm.
If you're late, you're fired. So me as a supervisor, even in the field and in construction, that was my mentality. Don't show up at the gate when it's time to start work, right? If work starts at 7:00, we're going to start work at 7:00.
Yeah.
So that was just my mentality. I've lived it, right? And it seems like you're the same way. And I don't know if that's just from becoming an NCO, being in the military period, but it's something that a lot of us have. But there's some of us that just don't care.
Yeah. A funny thing, I was like this before I was in the Army.
Okay, see?
When I was in high school, my brother used to hate riding with me to school because he used to always yell at my mom, "Toby is there before the janitor opens the doors."
I get it. I get it. Man, I think we've Covered a lot, dude. It's been really, really interesting. I appreciate you coming out.
I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, definitely take care out there. Stay in touch with me if there's anything that we as a company can do and provide you with anything you need, right, to succeed. Let us know for sure. And after you're done with with whatever the prerequisites are for SF, and then getting in and finishing up once you're actually in 20th group, I'd like to bring you back on. Would you be interested in that?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, until then, man, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
You too. Thank you for listening to this episode with Toby Hebert. As he talks about his construction life, his work in the civilian industry, and his transition from civilian to military and into 20th group with the National Guard. We learned quite a bit from Toby, his motivation and inspiration, and his dedication to our country, his family, his friends, his parents. We could definitely take note from that. If you'd like to support our podcast, please like and subscribe. We're right around the corner from the 4th of July, so it gives me an opportunity to share a little belief that I have, and most of us should have. Our country is not in the best state right now, but we make it everything that it is, right? It's something that I hold close to me, the red, white, and blue. Our forefathers founded the country on a lot of different beliefs. And we still have those different beliefs now, but it doesn't mean that we can't work together to overcome. So take this time to love your neighbor, love your friends, your family, and happy birthday, America. Until next time, this is Mike Farve, signing off.